views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to the transformative show, We Carry the Light, with host Dr. Susan Allison, the show that inspires you to find the light within and shine your light in the world. Who are you right now? And who do you want to be? What is it that makes you happy, helps you feel fulfilled, and living your purpose? Tune in and let Dr. Susan help you discover that you carry the unique light that only you can shine. Now, here is your host, Dr. Susan Allison.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to We Carry the Light. Whether you are a regular listener or you're new to the show, I am so glad you're here. And I know I say that every week, but I really mean it. I would not have a show without you. And I'm very, very grateful that you're here. Remember, you can go to the archive shows, go to my host page at transformationtalkradio.com, and you can listen there. Or you can even download all my archive shows as podcasts. So I'd love you to do that if you would like. If you are on a little vacation right now during this time of year, you could just snuggle up to the fire and listen to some podcasts. So my hope, as always, is that you're inspired and even transformed by the conversation today. And I know you will be. I was just speaking to our guest and saying that he was preaching to the choir when I read his book. Everything in it I already believe, which always feels nice when that happens. And it's going to be a very energetic conversation today. I know that. So as you know, I have just come out with a book myself and have been on so many radio shows in the past month. My head's sort of spinning. But I just want to just say I'm so inspired by the great shows out there and all the interviewers. I've had some amazing interviewers, really sharp, insightful questions that they have asked me. And they've made me really think more deeply about the big questions. And I'm talking about questions like, is there life after death? And if so, where do we go? Which I explore in my book. Is there a heaven and hell? I was interested that a few people have asked me if I've experienced a hell or purgatory in my shamanic journey work that I talk about in the book. And so it's been a very stimulating time for me talking to people about these issues. Another issue that's been up is, why do some people heal and live? And why do some people not heal and pass away? Now, I could say this has been stirring in my mind and heart just this week when I've been reading Tobin Blake's book, but it's not been just stirring in my heart and mind for this week. It's really been here for, I would say, about 8 years, ever since my husband was diagnosed with larynx cancer, and really valiantly prolonged his life and fought for his life for 6 years. But he did transition in 2013. And I mean, he literally did everything. He did conventional medicine, integrative medicine, alternative medicine. We went to experimental clinics, just about everything you can imagine he tried. And he'd also been a long-time meditator. He was Buddhist. He had always been healthy. He was a professional surfer at one point in his life, and the most positive person I've ever met. So why did my husband not heal? And why did he transition? Is a huge question on my mind this morning. He also, we cannot ignore environmental toxins. Yes, I feel that the mind and spirit have almost, the majority of connection to illness. But also we have all these environmental toxins that we're putting into our world. My husband was in Vietnam. He was exposed to Agent Orange. He'd been a smoker, although he quit at 19. The doctor said it affected his DNA. He'd also been a painting contractor and exposed to all those chemicals in the paint. So, yes, so that I think was part of it. But also as an Army medic, he came back from Vietnam carrying a lot of grief and guilt, and I think carried people back with him, all those he couldn't save. And he had PTSD from the trauma that he witnessed during the war. He did heal incredibly with all the therapy he did and groups he did, but I think he still carried survivor's guilt, and he carried grief about an unresolved issue in relationship in his family. So I think it all contributed to the illness and probably his death. So that said, I agree with today's guest, Tobin Blake, that guilt and other unresolved emotions and life issues can help to create dis-ease within us. It can even prevent us from healing. And I've already talked about this in my own book, Empowered Healer. As early as part 1 in that book, I ask readers to write about anything unresolved in their lives, especially emotions such as anger, resentment, guilt, emotions like regret, sadness. And in my therapy practice, I've seen individuals who work on these issues, they release these emotions, they release the past, they forgive themselves and others, and they heal, and they go on to lead happier and more peaceful lives. So, in Tobin Blake's book, The Healing of Jordan Young, he shares my belief, as I said earlier, in the mind-body-spirit connection. And Tobin also offers Jordan's story and also ways that readers can heal themselves and their lives, which I really like. And we'll talk about that more during the show, how he set the book up. So Tobin Blake is the author of The Power of Stillness and Everyday Meditation. He's a longtime student of meditation, healing, and the mind-body connection. He holds workshops on meditation and spiritual awakening, and he lives in Bend, Oregon. His website is tobinblake.com. So, Tobin, I'm so glad you're here this morning.
Good morning, Susan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you, and I loved your book. I'd like to start with, I always do this, but I'd like to start with the personal. And your whole book is completely personal. You're talking very transparently about your own feelings, your own struggles even, your own path in working with Jordan as he progressed through his illness and recovery. And I really like that. And you were so intimately involved in his healing process. So talk to, since I've read it, but some of the listeners haven't, can you just briefly talk about how it came about that you had these roles and all these different roles in his healing process, how that evolved?
Yeah, so just sort of to set the stage here.
Yeah.
Jordan was 18 years old at the time that he fell sick. He was diagnosed with an aggressive form of lymphoma, and ultimately that lymphoma progressed to the point where he was not expected to live.
Yeah.
So what happened basically was the variety of treatments he received, one after another, failed, and eventually the disease spread rampantly through his lungs and into his liver as well, at which point there really were no options as far as the doctors, on the surface anyway, could tell. And Jordan had been dating my daughter at the time. They were high school sweethearts. So really, this was a very, very personal thing to me. By the time Jordan became sick and was diagnosed, I had been studying meditation for decades. I had written 2 books on meditation. I had studied A Course in Miracles, probably one of the greatest teachings on healing ever recorded, for many, many years. And so it didn't strike me as a coincidence when Jordan, was in my life and he was sick. It was something that sort of I felt was like a synchronicity, or what I call a coincidence in the book. It wasn't really by chance, in other words. Mm-hmm. And I felt deeply compelled to do whatever I could to help this young man. And it was quite an extraordinary journey that ensued.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like how you intersperse the story. It's like the storyline, in terms of, if somebody's reading fiction, there's a plot and there's a storyline that's happening. So you intersperse that with chapters about healing methods and principles that you share with the reader. Talk about why you set the book up that way. I mean, I thought it was incredibly effective, but why did you set it up that way?
Well, I think that, number one, Jordan's story made a great example of how these principles could be applied.
Yep.
So it gives readers a real feel for how they can be used in real-life situations. But also, I think sometimes and I write lots of nonfiction. I also write fiction, by the way. But I think sometimes these days when readers pick up a nonfiction book, the material can feel kind of, if it's just stuff thrown out there, technical details, processes, it can make for a slow read. Let's just put it that way at times.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to provide a little bit more interest for the reader. Also, the story, you have to admit, is quite incredible, the way it all played out. As Jordan got sicker, we kind of reached this critical turning point when we had really what I felt was as close to a miraculous moment, a shift in perspective and a shift in the journey as could be possible. And I highlight that moment in the book. And then from there, it's just incredible, the string of coincidences, quote unquote, that play out to bring Jordan from a point where he's really at death's door to the point where he is recovered. And I think that there was really no way for me to describe that convincingly without just letting the reader experience it for themselves as we did.
Yep. No, I love that. I love that you told this story. And, the other thing is, now I understand better because you are a fiction writer. You were building, there was conflict, there was a climax, there was crises. So you also were building that in the book and would interrupt the plot and put something in terms of these are the methods I'm talking about we were using with Jordan. But then you see it entices the reader to keep reading.
Yeah.
And I loved that. And I knew it right away that was a device, but it worked beautifully. It kept me reading. I read it fast. Got to the end because because you look at your title, we already know what.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know he heals.
Right.
But
I say that in the very beginning, in the introduction, so there's no mystery there, but the how of it is the journey.
Exactly. I love it because we already know. I mean, I'm looking at the front of your book, The Healing of Jordan Young. He heals, and so we can go, whew, I can relax, but then I'm curious, right?
Right.
I want to know how it happened, and then you do it beautifully.
Oh, my gosh. Susan, in the midst of this even, when we were at OHSU Hospital in Portland, and Jordan is just going through this incredible life-or-death struggle before my very eyes, and these bizarre coincidences are popping up where he just finds himself at the right place at the right time with the right doctor in the right setting, and blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on. I feel like I just stepped out of reality and into some, made-for-TV drama, Hallmark movie,
I know
really felt that way.
I know. I remember the part in the book when he has, his lungs are absolutely filled with tumors. And I love it when the nurse throws herself kind of on him and says, we're not giving up on you.
I know. It sounds staged, but it wasn't. It was just life happening.
Real.
Yeah.
It was real. And then the spark in his eye, I wanted to save this. I'm going to actually make us save this for the very end of the interview. But in terms of all that happened and why on earth he healed, and we'll pull it all together. But just listeners, remember that there was this spark in his eye, and that is very, very important to why he healed. I do want to go back to some things you were saying, though, about synchronicity, about people showing up and you being there in his life at the time.
Yeah.
How did you come to believe in synchronicity, in that there are no accidents, there are no coincidences, that this is all meant to happen. How did you get to this belief?
Well, we all serve each other, and I had been studying spirituality and meditation for so long that I really had gotten to the point where I felt like that was just a part of my life, and I understood that when big things happen in your life, it's not on accident.
Yeah.
If you catch yourself saying, wow, what a weird coincidence, huh? Probably wasn't a coincidence.
Yeah.
Now, there are deeper meanings. We see life just on the surface. We see the world of form shifting and moving about. But life is really an ocean. So while we see the surface of things, and a very, very small portion of that surface at that, our narrow perspectives as human beings, just what we can see and sense around us, basically, underneath the ocean is really where the depth of life lies. And there are patterns underneath that, and attached to each of our, what you might call soul. I don't usually use the word soul, but whatever you want to call it. I usually use the word core self or higher self or true self. But there are patterns that need to be undone underneath the surface in order for us to be fully healed and awake and enlightened beings, which I have come to believe is the true destiny of all of us, of all of life, to become conscious and then to become present of Source or God. So there's all these patterns underneath the surface of our lives that need to be healed. And we don't, from our perspective, necessarily see what those patterns are and those things that need correcting. So we have all these experiences come to us, and usually when in a case like Jordan coming into my life, it wasn't just that I was there to be of assistance to him in his hour of need, but he was also of assistance to me in ways that I probably don't even fully understand now. But I certainly didn't regard myself as a healer, and I still don't any more than any of us are, which we all are. But, in some ways he certainly helped me to evolve, and I helped him through his process. So there were two people needing to benefit out of this, and that really is the hallmark of a coincidence. Two people coming together, and both of them, two or more, all of them getting something from that their soul needs. Exactly.
Well put. And I really believe in everything that you're sharing, and that I believe we have a soul's purpose, and that people are put into our lives, they're on our path, we're on their path, and it's part of, just because of my shamanic journey work, I've actually seen a contract that I signed, and I know Barbara Marx Hubbard also believes this, that if you can remember, you signed a contract that there's something you're to do here. We're not kind of totally conscious of it all the time, but we have inklings. Yeah, we have a sense, like, you were to be right there, right then in Jordan's life. And I have goosebumps right now because I believe that there are no accidents, that you were there in his life. He also helped you heal some of your relationships. As you share in the book.
Yeah, I felt like my life dramatically changed from the moment I met Jordan. And to be quite honest with you, it's kind of almost ironic. When Jordan was first diagnosed, I had reached a stage in my own evolution where I wasn't really particularly concerned with the healing of bodies. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I had reached the state, and my assessment of that state was not incorrect. It is correct, which is I'm not a body. The body is but an extension of what I am. Your body is an extension of what you are in truth. It's a temporary vessel. It's a learning device while we are here on earth. It is not what we are. I had reached this level where I had realized that through my actual experiences of what I truly am. And so I wasn't concerned with the body. I wasn't interested in healing. And then all of a sudden, life throws this curveball my way, and it says, okay, well, here's this kid, and he does believe he's a body, and he's very sick, and you truly care about him. Now what are you going to do about it? So, I had to take my understanding and my belief and really look carefully at it and reassess, how to handle a situation like this. And as I said before, I was never at that point interested in it. I wouldn't, if Jordan had become sick and I didn't know him, or I knew him from more of a distance, I would have perhaps held, healing thoughts in mind for him, blessings in mind for him, but I certainly wouldn't have become directly involved as I did.
Right. And it's humbling, isn't it? Because I think that particularly I've been meditating for 40 years as meditators, as someone who has a spiritual practice. I think at times it's not an arrogance, but it's sort of a complacency that we think we've arrived. We've arrived, and then there's a humbling where we realize there's another layer, there's something else I'm to learn. And also our bodies, you describe them as vehicles. Our bodies are temples of our spirit. Our bodies, we are embodied, and we're here on earth. And this has been hard for me since my husband's death, because when he passed away, I can shamanic journey to realms like a level of heaven. And I said, I don't want to be embodied. I don't want to be on earth. I want to be here. I want to be in heaven. I don't want to be there. And I heard over and over, it is not your time. We don't need you here. We need you there. We need you on earth. We need you to have a body. We need you to be doing your work. Please just go back, would you please, and do your work.
Well, I love you that you shared that, and I also like that you point out that there's always another level. There's always another layer to healing. It's like an onion. You unpeel one layer, and then there's another layer within, and then another, and then another. And everybody's seen those Chinese puzzle boxes, and it's just like that. And you kind of wonder sometimes on the journey, when will it end? But really. I've really started to observe some quick routes to that end, and they're great little trick, which is just accepting every experience as it is, and then you realize that all those layers are actually illusory layers. They seem to exist, and yet they don't seem to exist all at once, and they can be undone quite rapidly. So that's the good news. But alas, we are here for a reason. And we are all, we do have our assignments on Earth. We're all here to aid in the awakening of the planet. And we especially need folks like you right now in that process. So you can always visit those higher realms and make them a part of your human journey, but that final, ultimate joining with it permanently probably will wait just a little bit.
Exactly.
And I'm thankful you're here, Susan, that way we can talk about all this and share this with your listeners.
Yes, and I'm really thankful for you and for your book. And I'm talking with Tobin Blake and his incredible book, The Healing of Jordan Young, a 21st Century Spiritual Guide to Health and Healing. And this is an incredible conversation as well. I'm really enjoying it. One thing that you mentioned that this is all tied in, which is A Course in Miracles. And I'm a Course in Miracles minister. And so that's another reason why I could relate to everything in your book. But you talk in the book particularly about fear and guilt, and you were just talking about living in the present moment, which is also about, in terms of the Course in Miracles. Talk about this important, and I believe that this book is so important. Talk about it in terms of your book and in terms of Jordan. What about fear and guilt and the mind's part in illness and healing? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, so the first thing to, I guess, understand as a foundation here is that there's no separation between the mind and the body. I actually read something by a scientist named Candace Pert. And Dr. Pert was a pharmacologist. She was a hardcore scientist. She had 250-plus scientific papers published. She was the co-discoverer of the endorphin system, and she had done a tremendous amount of research into the mind-body connection. And Dr. Pert really summed up her own work on this in one of her books, Molecules of Emotion. And she stated that the body is not just connected to the mind. The body is actually a physical extension of the mind in space. The physical extension extension of the mind in space. So the mind actually becomes body. So your body and your mind are more than just connected. They're one. So therefore, anything that you discover in your body must have some parallel in your mind, and your what I call the head and the heart of the patient. So if we can then just find what that is, we can correct the mental part of it. And then the body, the physical ailment or whatever's going on, will correct itself somehow, some way, or it will just become a non-issue. And, it could be through some medication, a new medication, an old medication that suddenly starts working, or it could be the patient finds himself in just the right spot at just the right moment, a new healing technique is brought about, or maybe they'll just spontaneously recover. But however it happens, somehow that will happen. So there's your primary building block, if you will, to understanding exactly how our emotional state affects our physical state. Once you realize that the mind and the body are actually one thing, and the body is only reflecting or extending from the mind, then you realize that negative thinking patterns, fear patterns, guilt patterns, which is anger actually reversed and turned against yourself, probably the most destructive in terms of really damaging our lives, then you will realize that it is essential to reprogram the thinking process, and your emotional responses, most importantly, to the thinking process, if you really want to confront and heal at the deepest level physical ailments.
Yeah. No, beautifully put. Mind-body connection. I love the Hawaiian kahuna's concept that we have three souls, not just one soul. We have a physical soul, a mental soul, and a spirit soul, and they need to be in constant dialogue. Yeah. Our souls need to be all working together and dialoguing for ultimate health and realization of truly who we are. So beautiful discussion, and we do need to take a break, but we'll be right back with Tobin Blake in just a moment.
Preceding audio was via a Skype call.
Put a little woohoo in your life with Keys. Keys Clear Protein Waters have 22 grams of smile-making, attitude-adjusting protein in every bottle. Did I mention its tongue-tingling taste? Not just another guilty pleasure. With Keys, you'll enjoy every low-sugar sip and freedom from gluten, lactose, and GMOs. Who needs the fountain of youth when you can find Keys on Amazon or at Keys, Kees, please.com. Put a little woohoo in your attitude with Keys Protein Water.
A word of caution, if you prefer the status quo and you are not interested in improving every aspect of your life, this book will trigger the shift out of you. The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens is available now. Author Colette Steffen brings the powerful knowledge and life-changing energy and empowerment from the radio airwaves to the pages of her new book. To get your copy in paperback or ebook, visit thetruthisfunny.com today.
Shine On Radio. Find Your Shine with Kelly is the show that celebrates what makes you, you. Join co-hosts Kelly Wadler and Dr. Pat Basili as they break down how to brilliantly fuel and move your body and love what makes you shine. Kelly is a professional arts and wellness coach dedicated to helping brilliant women find their confidence, energy, self-love, and shine. Tune in to Shine On Radio with Kelly and find your shine on transformationtalkradio.com.
Hi, Hi, I'm Leslie Fontaine with Sheer Alchemy on Transformation Talk Radio, and here's your tip of the day. What happens after we shift? An energetic shift can be disconcerting. When you shift from the known to the unknown, you literally are going into unknown territory without the former rules and constraints that held you in check. You feel happiness and joy, but you're nervous about not knowing what's next. Even happiness can be unfamiliar. You just don't have the guardrails. No one's telling you, it's dangerous, stop, you'll get hurt. Plunge in, leap, taste it. Listen to your intuitive guidance. Let yourself step beyond the boundaries that you've known and challenge yourself to listen to your intuitive guidance, to your higher self, and learn what you were placed here to do. I'm Leslie Fontaine. Visit me at lesliefontaine.com or call 678-665-3366.
Are you ever consumed with the idea that something needs to change? You hear Oprah and other inspiring people talk about living your authentic life, and yet it's much easier said than done. Duda, the kick-ass muse, has crafted a world-renowned coaching platform that will help you get clarity on the issues you face, take bold risks, get back your confidence, and brave your fears. To learn more and work with Duda today, visit kickassmuse.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to We Carry the Light. And this is Dr. Susan, and I'm here with Tobin Blake. We're having an amazing conversation, most recently, before the break, about the mind-body connection, that really the mind and the body are one. And I also mentioned that we need to be in dialogue with the body, noticing if we have a tense shoulder, what is going on that's deeper, what's going on in our emotions, what's going on in our thoughts, so that we are in dialogue with our body rather than ignoring it, which I see people do. I mean, how many of you have seen people hobbling along with their knees wrapped and they're running on a hard pavement, looking miserable? So many people don't listen to the body. Just, they're listening from the neck up. They're not listening to their body. Their body is saying, help. Hey, pay attention to me. I'm trying to give you a message here about your life. So we've been talking about that connection. So, Tobin, I want to go more deeply into this, that really there are some principles that we need to pay attention to in order to heal. So let's take a look at them. Let's take a look at your principles in the book, which I thought were brilliant.
Yeah, and, much of this material came to me during the process here as Jordan was recovering, or, as he was struggling with the sickness in general and then slowly recovering. And it was quite extraordinary because when we got to the point where we felt like Jordan might, in fact, not make it, I basically said, like so many people, I turned to God, and I said, well, modern science, modern medicine has failed us. Now where do you turn? Now what do you do? And, of course, I turned to God. I call it God in this instance, but you could call the same thing source or spirit or whatever you prefer to call it. It's all really the same. But I said, God, how can I help here? And then the most extraordinary thing occurred at that moment, and which was that these principles of healing began just sort of coming to me, trickling in at first and gradually gathering steam. And they continued to come in even after Jordan had pretty much recovered, for, the year or more afterwards before I actually wrote the book and decided that I needed to put these principles down. So in some ways, this book is one of those books that really felt like it was written through me as opposed to from me.
Right. I call them divine downloads.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
You can borrow that, but give me credit. Divine downloads is what was happening, and they were, my songwriting happens that way. And in this sense, these fabulous principles of yours we're downloading from source. And it's very beautiful that you're not taking credit for them. I don't take credit for my songs. It's like they're being given to me in a way. It's like a gift.
Yeah, they belong to the universe and not to me. I was just, one instrument of bringing them into physical being here.
That's right. So let's talk about them. We don't have time to talk about them all.
Yeah.
But maybe grab one or two that really, really resonated for you, and also in terms of Jordan's healing. So what sort of speaks to you of the principles that you received?
Well, first of all, there were actually 10 principles, and seven of them were presented outright at the beginning. And then I had 3 special principles. And, sometimes we've already sort of covered a couple of the principles, which is that the mind and body are connected. So love thoughts help to heal the body. And another principle is that fear thoughts, in contrast, feed disease. But there were also 3 special principles of healing, and sometimes it's very helpful to cover those.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, just in brief, I will say the first special principle of healing is the patient must believe healing is possible in order to heal. The second principle was, in order to heal, the patient must want to heal. And the third special principle is, in order to heal, the patient must feel they deserve to heal. All these 3 are just critical psychological conditions of the head and the heart of the patient, of their psychological or their mental body, and of their emotional body as well, that need to come in line with these principles in order for healing to truly take place, meaning at the deepest level of the disease, it is actually healed and not just symptom cured, as sometimes happens with medication. Sometimes the person will have a disease, and they'll be given some medication or a treatment, and the disease will go away for a while. It may resurface. They may get sick again with something else. They may become depressed. All these, what we're talking about is the disease just changing form. So in this instance, if you want to cure the disease permanently, these principles are essential.
Yeah. So in terms of Jordan, do you feel that he believed in those last 3 principles that you talked about?
I can't tell you exactly. Jordan is a young man, and while I taught him meditation and visualization and introduced some of these things to him, in fact, eventually Jordan took a full 8-week meditation course that I was teaching at the local hospital here. I can't say that, he necessarily ever accepted these things for himself. But they certainly were in place. And I want to make this clear. You don't have to believe any of these particular principles in order to heal. But you still have to somehow mentally and emotionally align with them. So, in other words, you have to believe that healing is possible. If you don't believe that healing is possible, if you've been told by a doctor or a number of doctors or whomever that you cannot heal or that your diagnosis is terminal, it makes it extremely difficult for you to heal. I mean, you're fighting against your own belief system. That means you're fighting against your own mind. That is really, really difficult. And Jordan actually said that he never thought he was going to die. No matter how bad it got, that wasn't a part of his mind. So certainly he was aligned with that.
That's right.
Second of all, the patient must want to heal. It doesn't mean that they necessarily need to recognize this principle, but they have to want to in general. They have to be in a position where healing is more important to them than anything the sickness is giving them. This is a very important principle, and we should spend a moment here and just highlight this.
Yeah.
The patient must want to heal. First of all, when you hear that, you think, why in the world wouldn't the patient want to heal? If you're sick, of course, you would think that you would obviously want to heal. And I do believe that everybody really does want to heal. But when you look deeply into the psychological mechanisms behind the disease process, you may realize, and this requires on the patient's part intense, direct honesty. It requires courage. You have to be willing to look into your mind, and you have to be willing to ask yourself in full honesty, what the heck am I getting out of this, if anything? Is there anything that I'm using this disease for? And oftentimes you'll find that there are, in fact, rewards that patients are using their disease process for. For instance, a very, very simple one. Some patients, some people use sickness as a way to get attention from others. It's a really simple thing. We learn it very young, and everybody's had the experience, I'm sure. You get sick as a kid, and your mom comes rushing in or your dad comes rushing in. They're feeling your forehead. They're giving you all this attention. They tell you, no, honey, stay home, stay in bed, watch cartoons, here's some ice cream or some other treats. And, this love certainly is a natural reaction, and it does help us to heal on the one hand. On the other, if that person doesn't feel respected and important outside of their illness, and they don't feel like they have strong relationships outside of that, they may, in fact, use their disease as a way to acquire that attention, and it can become a lifelong pattern.
Yeah.
But there are many other things that a patient may get out of it, and I outline some of these in the book, and I know you discussed some of them in your book, as you mentioned to me earlier. So it is just critical that you get down and dirty, and what Peter Gabriel called digging in the dirt. He wrote a song called Digging in the Dirt. You got to dig in the dirt of your own life. What am I getting out of this, if anything? What am I using it for? And then bring that into consciousness and change your mind. That's
good.
Simple. Change your mind.
Good, exactly. I mean, I've been a therapist, since 1989. I see people do this all the time. They get ill to keep a partner when they think their partner is straying or isn't as interested. They become, I have a, client right now becomes, sick with everything you can imagine, surgeries and illnesses and accidents, to keep her partner roped in and reeled in. And I've seen people do it as an escape, that they don't know quite what to do next in life, and so they hunker down and stay in bed. And you list this beautifully, but I think just for listeners, take a look at dividends, if there are dividends that you're getting from being ill, or you notice that you're accident prone, and it's sometimes it's a time out from life, and instead of getting a cold and staying home, which is not that much fun, you could say, wow, do I need a break? Wow, right. do I need a vacation? And you really look at, I'm burned out, I need time, I need to travel or whatever, rather than getting sick to accomplish what it is that your mind and spirit are actually calling for.
Yeah. However it happens, you need to change your mind about it. And I also want to add this here. Many people become offended by the notion that their mind is affecting this, that their disease may be, in part at least, a product of what's going on in their emotional life. And I understand this, but you also have to remember that defensiveness is actually a mechanism to preserve the illness and not to challenge oneself. So I urge you to take time to really examine the disease and summon the courage to do this. It's going to require some courage and some change of mind. And just look and just honestly ask yourself, okay, I don't know. You have to come to the point where you say, I don't know if I'm really using this or not. On the surface, I don't see it. But if I am, I want to know about it because I want to get better.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for saying that, because there is some resistance often that I see in my clients. It's like, how dare you question what's going on for me? I'm ill. I have this disease. I'm not causing it, but I do feel, and I do feel it's a combination, as I mentioned about my husband, in terms of environmental toxins and inner issues that had not been resolved in his life. But I also feel that it's important to let go of our ego, our pride, let go of being defensive, and, as you say, get down in the dirt, just really get inside. And people can get my book on Amazon as well. It's called Empowered Healer, and it has question after question that you journal about to discover if there are any things that are keeping you from being the healthiest and happiest you could be in your life.
Yeah, that sounds like a great tool.
Yeah, it's really important. So I want to just move on to this whole healing of Jordan, and I guess my question is, what causes someone to heal? I mean, is it Is it meditation and laying on of hands, as you talk about in the book? Is it targeted chemo? Is it bone marrow transplants? What is it? Or is it the patient's own will? Like, why do you think Jordan recovered and is still in recovery?
Yeah, and it seems like a very complicated thing. I think in truth it's a very simple thing. It's a decision, but at least as we experience it, it certainly seems to be complicated in the process we go through. But to address that, I'd like to just share a quote with you, if I might. I know that you mentioned A Course in Miracles earlier, and I share this quote from A Course in Miracles in the book. And A Course in Miracles challenges us. And just briefly, for those of you who don't know what A Course in Miracles is, I love the way Dr. Wayne Dyer once described it. He said, A Course in Miracles is a teaching whom some people believe comes directly from Christ. However, even if you don't believe that, or no matter what you believe, if more people in the world live their lives based on its teachings, the world would be instantly and radically transformed. So there you have it. But A Course in Miracles challenges us, and it says, who is the physician? Only the mind of the patient himself. Special agents seem to be ministering to him, yet they but give form to his own choice. He chooses them in order to bring tangible form to his desires, and it is this they do and nothing else. They are not actually needed at all. The patient could merely rise up without their aid and say, I have no use for this. There is no form of sickness that would not be cured at once.
Wow.
So there are mechanisms involved in the healing because we believe the mechanisms are necessary. There are medications involved in healing because we believe we need those medications, perhaps. But we make the decision to heal, and then whatever we need in our own minds to accomplish that falls into our laps, essentially. And if we choose not to heal, and if it's our time to leave this earth, which we all come to that point, and I should point out here, we all deal with sickness at some point in our life. There is no doubt about that. You can't live very long in this world without dealing with sickness or some form or another. So we're all in the same boat here. But if we choose not to, and it is our time indeed to leave this world, then nothing will help. It doesn't matter how advanced the medication or the treatments are. Nothing will help. So this, I think that you probably, Susan, will be able to relate back to your own situation with your husband.
Mm-hmm.
Every soul comes to the point where they have learned whatever it is they were meant to learn here in this particular incarnation, and then it is time to move along. And that can happen, we can fight against that and be terrified, or we can use that moment to truly awaken. So even at that moment, we have a choice.
Absolutely. And from my own 22 years of experience doing shamanic work, we are still transforming. We are still growing there. We're growing in the upper world, whether you call it heaven or paradise or the world on high, depending on your spiritual beliefs, or you call it the upper world in shamanism. We continue to grow. We continue to evolve. We continue to work on ourselves because that is our essence, our soul, our spirit. It's our energy, whatever you want to call it. We're densely packed light according to quantum physics. That continues to live and continues to evolve in that world. And my belief is, in my husband's case, that he's doing work there. He's guiding me. He helped guide me to write my recent book. And I do feel that it was time. It was time for him to be there. And it took a while for me to really accept that and know that that's the truth. But it is exactly as you have shared.
Yeah, and I love this story, and I forget where it comes from. It's an old story, but it is great, and it likens the death process or transitioning process to that other realm as being on a boat, a sailing boat, getting on a sailing boat. And, for those of us who are here watching our loved ones sail away on this boat, we generally have tears in our eye, and we're all waving, there they go. there they go. But on the other side, as that boat comes over the horizon, there's everyone they've ever loved standing there on the shore, and they're all so overjoyed to see that boat arrive, and they see it coming, and they start crying and jumping up for joy and waving, here they come, and that is life. Every transition, every death is a birth somewhere.
So beautiful. I so know that that's the truth. So it's interesting. I wanted to save this for the end, but tell us what happens for Jordan. What a beautiful young man. And I mentioned at the beginning of the show that what hit me was that spark in his eye.
Yeah. Jordan is an amazing kid, and I love him dearly. But so what happened basically was his illness came to a head, and his treatments had failed him. And he ended up being life-flighted from where we live here in Central Oregon to Portland, to a major medical center there. And he was admitted to their intensive care unit. And basically he was suffocating. It was discovered the disease had spread to his lungs, and that he couldn't breathe because of that. And really all of his treatments had failed. And at some point, the doctor in charge there at the ICU came in because he had asked me privately, does Jordan really know, what's going on here? Does he understand that most likely he's not going to survive this? And I said, I don't think that he really does. And so that doctor, along with a social worker and a nurse, all came in the room and sat down with Jordan. And the nurse was standing a little bit back, and I was sitting there with Jordan as well. And, he gave Jordan, what I call the talk, the big talk, I don't remember exactly what was said, but basically it was clear enough, you're probably not going to survive this. And Jordan even asked, the doctor asked Jordan, I should say, do you understand what we're saying? And Jordan said, you mean I'm not going to make it?
Yeah.
And, tears came into his eyes, and it was just, one of those horrendous moments. There's no other way to put it. It was a horrendous moment to see this young 18-year-old boy in this situation. And it's just, all this life just potentially wasted. And then there was a quiet moment where we all fell silently, the doctor, me, and the social worker. We all just sort of placed our hands on Jordan, and we fell into the silent moment. I felt my own self just raised beyond the physical realm. I'm very familiar with this. I meditate all the time. So I just let myself experience that fully. And it was a powerful, powerful moment. And then the nurse came over just a few seconds later, and she basically laid herself down across Jordan's chest, and she looked at him straight in the eye and said, nobody's given up on you here. And just at that moment, I was watching Jordan's face, and I saw him. I saw this, and it was a moment that is so powerful, I will never forget it. I describe it in detail in the book. I saw him make the decision with the force of his will to live. To live.
Yeah.
Then he proceeded to do so despite the odds against him.
Yep. Yep. Beautiful. I have goosebumps again. And really, I hope you listeners get this book. Wow. Let's quickly just tell people how to get your book and contact you, Tobin.
Sure. Well, of course, I'm available on Facebook, as is everybody else. Just look up Facebook, Tobin Blake. I think it's facebook.com/Tobin Blake, and you'll find me there. My website is tobinblake.com. That's TOBINBLAKE.com. And the book's available everywhere. So wherever you buy books, just go and ask for The Healing of Jordan Young.
Yeah, no, incredible book. I love it. So anything that you want to share as we come to a close here, what you've learned overall from your experience with Jordan and writing this book, maybe what you hope readers can take from your experience and your writing?
Well, I think number one and the main thing is hope. I mean, that's really what the book is about. It provides Jordan's story just as an example of never giving up and fighting through. And the healing system in there, as I've already said, was this remarkable material that just came to me during this. I really didn't know where it was coming from, but I felt like it was so profound that I had to share it with the world, and I was meant to, and as you see, I did.
Yes.
And once I had the epiphany where I said, well, God, I don't know what to do here anymore. How may I help? How may I help your son? Because truly we are all sons and daughters of God, of Source. And so I just stepped back and I just sort of opened my mind to that. And in Jordan's situation, the most remarkable thing started to occur when I did that, which was the words started coming to me and forming. And the first things they said were, with love, all things can be healed.
Oh, love it. Love it.
With love, hope is always justified. And
That's
with
right.
love, nothing is impossible, no matter what the doctors or anyone else tells you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'd love to end on that, which we must do, but it's been incredibly stimulating and enlightening having you here. Thank you so much for being here, Tobin, and helping so many people.
Thank you, Susan. Namaste.
Same to you. Thank you, everyone, for listening and being open to ways that you can heal. Please join me next week when Karen Diggs shares her book, Happy Foods, and she's going to help us improve our mood, our energy, and our lives. Until then, this is Dr. Susan reminding you that you carry the light.
You've been listening to The Transformative Show, We Carry the Light, with host Dr. Susan Allison, the show that inspires you to find the light within and shine your light in the world. Who are you right now? And who do you want to be? What is it that makes you happy, helps you feel fulfilled, and living your purpose?